Hello world, it's Fudge, and today I'll be breaking down more of Marvel Rivals' incredible character designs. As an amateur character designer myself, I'll do my best to explain why the heroes of Rivals really stand out. But of course, take what I say with a grain of salt, as I'm not a professional, just a starry-eyed goober. Despite being something of a joke character, Squirrel Girl actually has an excellent design. She's something of a fan favorite, and later I'll be explaining the deeper design reasons why that is. Squirrel Girl has a very earthy palette, brown and orange being the primaries, gray and off-white the secondaries, with hints of green and pink as the tertiaries. The hair, shirt, and some of the detailing all share the bright orange, with the earthy brown perfectly balancing it out. Brown is basically just dark orange, so these colors match wonderfully. The leggings have a less noteworthy gray-brown, and the boots are dark. This tells us that, hey, the important details are up here, not down there. However, the boots have a little bit of that white fur, balancing the contrast and making sure the bottom doesn't get lost. The enormous tail was an amazing decision, which is not only unmistakable, but is just so aggressively squirrel. Oh, and one of her abilities is bouncing the tail off the ground to get a boost. Literally comedy gold. Oh, and look at this! Her hair has similar shaping and texture as the fur. Both have shorter strands with a slight curl and unruly nature. The sleeves of her jacket have a pine cone texture, which isn't exactly oak tree-like, but it's still foresty, adding a very unique texture to the jacket. Acorns are obviously her motif, with a few acorn logos on her jacket, an acorn-shaped belt buckle, which is honestly pretty rad. She eats acorns, which is a tad strange. I can tell you from experience that acorns don't taste great. But why do we love Squirrel Girl? Well, the best way I can explain it, every aspect of her design is imbued with a feeling of relatability. Her outfit is almost normal compared to others in the game. She isn't built like a mythical being, and she can't control the weather or move metal or turn into a monster. She just really likes rodents. And I'd be remiss if I talked about her relatability without mentioning Milana Weintraub's top-notch voice performance.
I do still kind of have a crush on Wolverine. Oh my, OMG, you are the cutest shark ever. Look at those little feet. Well, any friend of Squirrel's is a friend of mine. Your royal Thor guy, dude, muscles, man.
I'm willing to bet most of us have never met someone like Magneto or Psylocke or Doctor Strange, but we've probably met someone who's kind of like Squirrel Girl. Black Panther is a fantastic example of taking something that was already cool and making it better. Black Panther is a king, but he does not wear a crown like Loki or Scarlet Witch. Rather, his necklace invokes crown imagery, using its golden color, round shape, the big crown jewel, and the teeth resemble crown prongs. The design doesn't scream king as much as, say, Loki, but the gold does wonders for the vibes, giving an unmistakable royal presence. If you told someone unfamiliar with the character that he's a warrior king, they wouldn't have a hard time believing you. The pattern of the necklace is repeated in the arms, but where the necklace invokes either teeth jewelry or crown prongs, the spikes on the arm feel like weapons, ready to torpedo into action. The lines in the abs resemble lightning bolts, conveying feelings of speed and danger. We see these patterns repeated in the mask, but these patterns don't just apply to the gold. A second type of black material streaks through the suit. While they're generally less lightning-like than the gold, they absolutely embody the same vibes. I love how the suit looks like it's made of real materials. The MCU Black Panther had a bit of sci-fi bullcrapium syndrome. There's a tiny bit of pinkish purplish, which adds the techie highlights. The spine on the back was an incredible decision, communicating beyond any doubt this is a high-tech design. The mask is scary, with its animalistic profile and little glowing eyes that peer from underneath arched eyebrows. The pose is scary too, possessing the same animalistic energy. This adds ambiguity as to whether he's on your side or not. This fits Wakanda's historical isolation and distrust of the outside world. Loki is over-designed with a ton of gaudy, distracting gold. But it works so well for his character. Loki thinks he's God. His iconic traits are severe narcissism, trickery, and a burning desire for attention. Look at the inconsistency of the gold details. The legs have etched pictures, the arms have swirls, the chest has straight lines and right angles, the helmet has points, and the cape has this beautiful trim involving triangles. This is inconsistent, and it may seem it lacks clear vision, but the utilization of gold being all over the place only plays into his arrogance. He's so wonderful that a single shape or pattern can't possibly express his magnificence. And so, the gold does create a clear vision, a vision of extreme arrogance and misconduct. The heavy use of navy in the front was the right call. The gold is so insane and it needs to be balanced out by something dark. Loki wants to be seen, but he wants to be perceived as beautiful, not hard to look at. All the navy does unfortunately mean not much green is used in the front, but the cape is an ocean of iconic green, so it makes up for it. I love the fur. It not only looks expensive and glorious, it seriously beefs up the cape. Fur adds weight to capes, both visually and literally. Oh yeah, and Loki literally has a skirt and a cape. I know from making characters myself that skirts and capes often don't work together. It's just too much cloth flopping around. But when we account for the waistcloth and the hanging ribbons by the shoulders, it's clear that hanging cloth is a motif, as it typically adds a feeling of splendor. Loki's silhouette is also pretty spectacular. He somehow looks 8 feet tall and like the most powerful man in the kingdom. It's interesting how 2 of Loki's emotes are bows, which are typically a sign of respect, but Loki makes them look so pompous, like an arrogant actor soaking up the crowd's praise. Loki may be over-designed, but it absolutely works in his favor. It's a silly meme word, but I can't think of a better one. Loki is absolutely dripped out. A lot of male characters on Rivals are built like tanks, but Thor looks like an indestructible barrier of sheer might. Thor stands out with his legs being just as powerful as his chest, making a silhouette that's nearly a solid square, a brick wall. This neat storm cloud blue is used a lot, with royal red and silver being the other primaries, drawn by black for contrast and subtle gold for accents. Thor doesn't need the gaudiest shade of gold. We can tell he's royalty. And look at the way the blue lightning illuminates the blue armor. The vibrant red guides your eyes to his big arms, but spots of red also inhabit the waist and boots, allowing your eyes to naturally explore the character and realize it's not just his chest that's impressive, it's the whole picture. Thor has this awesome silver armor on his forearms. There's not much silver armor on the current roster, so this makes Thor stand apart as a distinctly medieval figure. I was confused why there was brown fur on the shoulders, as I thought brown wasn't used anywhere else in the design. Turns out the handle of Mjolnir is brown. Fur is also common on Norse armor, so that's pretty sick that it's there. We played Spot the Triangles with Scarlet Witch in the first part. Let's spot the circles on Thor. Obviously, his chest features them prominently. There's tons of tiny circles in the arms, some big bolts sit atop the shoulders. The crown has some obvious circles accompanied by smaller ones too, and the boots are held together as subtle circles. And of course, Mjolnir has the big round plate. Alright, I can't ignore it anymore. The winged crown is freaking awesome. The beard is sick, the long hair is magnificent, the striking blue eyes match his lightning. The head is absolutely perfect on Thor. I love how they went for white hair. It makes him look experienced and wise. And also just, the wings, man. They're so cool. Despite many characters already being built like mythical figures, Thor manages to look extra mythical, just as he should. Magik is a great example of weird cool. This is a weird design with thrift store shorts and tights, scavenged-looking spiky armor, a perfectly forged breastplate, and a big sword that makes any Monster Hunter player happy. But dude, the color palette is awesome! Gunmetal Gray is used heavily, which I love because I think it's one of the coolest colors ever. She has the yellowest blonde hair in the roster, and yellow is used both for primary details and accents. The color scheme is all about contrast. Black, brown, and the beautiful gunmetal gray are all dark. But on the flip side, we have bright glowy yellow, bright blonde, and her skin tone. Perhaps this contrast reflects the two personas of the character, Magik and Darkchild. The most interesting thing about this design is the clash of styles. We have clear dark fantasy vibes with gunmetal armor, infernal yellow, and the big spikes. But we also have a punk vibe with the ripped tights, spiky biker glove, and spiky collar. The fantasy and punk vibes are unified through the spikes. No element embodies this better than the belts, which perfectly fit both Dark Warrior and punk aesthetic. First time seeing this character, I found the holes in her tights kinda strange, but after creating a rough patched version, I understand their purpose. Not only do they aid the feelings of punk, they're essential for contrast. Without them, the lights stop at her belt, only resuming in the bright sword, which pulls all attention away from Magik herself. Also, her sword is freaking rad! Look at the giant overbuilt crossguard and the way it clasps the blade within it. The blade shimmers in its incredibly unique yellow color, the deadly weight it's carried as it's flailed around, and the patterns on the breastplate match the patterns of the crossguard. Also, I love big spiky pauldrons. They're so stupid but so awesome. But see that little purplish gem? I believe it's hinting at the purplish color of Darkchild. I'm not a Diablo player, so I'm not super well versed in this hellish aesthetic, but I'll try to break it down. The dark fantasy elements are turned up to 11, with lots of armor forming even crazier patterns, the spikes being enlarged, the super cool wing things turning into horns, and the infernal glow being amped up, even including some red. But the design is super busy, with every surface being covered in tons of details. Maybe the justifications for Darkchild's over-design is that it's an exaggeration of Magik, and is part of turning the vibes to 11? I don't know for sure, but what I can tell you is the contrast is very well done. The bright hair and generally lighter skin at the top add a focal point, which is much needed so we don't get overwhelmed by all the details. But dude, the Darkchild's sword is sick! It's like Magik's sword, but it has that over-the-top double blade thing, and it flares outwards, invoking blunt weapons like axes and clubs. This shows that Darkchild is brutal and merciless. Magik, perfect character design with an uncommon unification of styles. Darkchild, a little iffy in my opinion, but it absolutely captures the vibe it's going for. And as I end, I just want to express my heartfelt thanks for all the wonderful comments on the first part. The encouragement, your own analyses, agreeing with me, disagreeing with me. I enjoyed reading all of them. It means a lot to me to know that so many of you found that video interesting, and it wasn't just some soulless algorithm shoving it in everyone's faces. And I hope you enjoyed this part as much as the first. Thank you everyone for your support, and I will absolutely make part 3 if you're interested. You've been watching the FudgeBot, and remember, help out your tanks if the enemies have a Wolverine.